Hello everyone and welcome to another casual review. Today I'm talking about Spiritfarer. This game came out almost a year ago and I have been patiently waiting for the physical edition to drop. It finally has. I've been playing it non-stop for about a week now and I'm really excited to talk about it. Spiritfarer is a management game. If you've ever played any of those games, think like Stardew Valley or Story of Seasons. If you haven't played any of that, something kind of like Animal Crossing, although it is a little more Farmville-y than Animal Crossing is. Tonally, I could see the comparison for sure, though. It's very friendly and relaxing and kind of go at your own pace. Obviously, like, you're not killing anything or anyone. Well, I guess in a way you are. Let me just explain the premise of this game. If you are familiar with your Greek mythology, you might know the character Charon, and he is basically like this skeleton who has this rowboat, and he takes dead souls to the underworld. In this game, you play the character Stella and her cat named Daffodil, and you are tasked with being the new Spiritfarer, so you're taking over for Charon. But before you start thinking this game is very dark, it has a very light and friendly tone to it. It is very peaceful. Yes, you are taking these lost spirits to the afterlife, whatever that may be. You take them to this object called the Door, but it is on the spirit's own terms. Whenever they request to be taken to the Door, you're not forcing anyone to do anything. So before you think that this game is pretty dark and evil, it is not like that at all. So at the beginning of the game, you are given this ship, and it is pretty small, and you start building these individual buildings on top of your ship. It almost becomes the size of a giant town. All these buildings are stacked upon each other. As you progress through the game, you are traveling across this vast ocean, and you are going from island to island. There's all these different things to explore, all these different resources to gather, and along the way you are picking up these lost spirits who take the form of these different varying animals. These spirits have lots of different personalities and backstories and characteristics, and as you talk to them, you kind of understand more and more about them, what their past was, and you really build a connection to all of these spirits that take these animal forms. You are tasked with keeping them nice and happy, and any requests that they have, any unfinished business these spirits may have before they go to the Door, it is your job to help them fulfill that. So even if they're hungry, it's your job to give them food that they like. There is even a whole hug button just to give you an impression of how friendly and cozy this game is. You can hug animals who are just needing a hug and just need to be happy. So it really progresses from there. There's a lot of management that you need to do. There's farming. You can plant fruit trees. You gather up wood to craft more buildings, smelt ore, a ton of different things that slowly get unveiled to you as you progress through the game. At the beginning of the game, when you are traveling across the ocean, just going from island to island, it can sometimes feel like there's not much to do besides fishing off the side of your boat, and it can be a little boring moment to moment. It can be a little slow, but as you progress through the game, it suddenly feels like you're juggling all these balls, especially if you have a ton of lost spirits on your ship at once. It can be a little hard managing 5 different spirits and making sure that they are all happy, making sure that all of your crops are well watered, all your animals have been fed. You know, it just feels like you're juggling a lot of balls. So it picks up after a while, but at the beginning of the game, I could see a lot of people being deterred with how slow the pacing is at first. The time in the game is by game time, not Animal Crossing time. So it's not like a real day in real life is a day in the video game. I want to say about every 5 to 10 minutes is a day in the actual gaming space. You could potentially binge game this if you really wanted to. You don't have to wait in real life like Animal Crossing. There is some light platforming in this game, which is pretty new compared to other games of this nature that I've played before. I mean, you're not going to be jumping around in Stardew Valley or Animal Crossing, but it's nothing too difficult. Don't think like if you're not that coordinated, you won't be able to play this game. I never hit the point where I was frustrated with the platforming. It's not like you can die or anything either. You just fall down into the vast ocean and have to work your way back up the mountain, but it is very friendly as far as gameplay goes. One of the other things that you can do platforming wise is as you progress through the game, each spirit kind of has a unique mini game for you to play in order to collect unique resources. So the very first character you come across is this deer named Gwen, and she will introduce this mini game where these jellyfish will float across your ship, and it's your goal to gather up these jellyfish. This will give you currency called glims, and if you gather up the green jellyfish, then you also get this unique jelly that you need in order to craft certain things. So it's kind of interesting because as you build your ship and you move these buildings around on your ship, you are kind of creating your own platforming area in order to play all these many mini games that get introduced to you. I like the idea of these mini games, but one of my gripes is as you're traveling across the ocean, certain mini games trigger when you hit certain areas. My biggest example of this would be these thunderstorms. So there is a character named Atul, and whenever you enter a thunderstorm, he'll ask you, hey, do you want to collect some of these thunder lightning bolts in a jar, basically? To get that sort of resource, you have to go across this static area on the ground on your ship. The thing that really bugs me about this, however, is your ship immediately stops progressing. Even if you don't want to play this minigame, you have to either accept this minigame or deny it in order for your ship to get moving again. I wish that it would, and you know, if they wanted to give you time to accept the minigame or not, maybe just slow the boat down a little bit, because sometimes I'd be in the middle of crafting something, like smelting ore can take a long time, or blacksmithing. That can also be kind of a time investment, and I just had to immediately drop what I'm doing in order to deny the minigame if I don't want to collect lightning strikes right now. That would happen a lot. There's other fields in the ocean that would trigger these minigames, but there are these lightning storm areas all around, even like all around the Everdor. In order to get to the Everdor, you have to go through this thunderstorm all the time. And at first it's not that big of a deal, especially when you actually want these resources, but near the end game you are just, no, I don't want to play any of these games. I already have like 100 lightnings in a bottle. The gameplay is pretty interesting. I would compare it to a Metroidvania even, where as you progress through the game, you unlock these things called obols, and you use these obols to give Stella some extra maneuverability. Things like a double jump or a glide or a bounce. There's like a lunge forward. So as you progress through the game, you hit these certain shrines, and that's how you unlock these platforming abilities. And it's almost like you can't progress in the game in certain areas until you hit these certain platforming abilities. So you are like, as soon as you unlock, like, let's say the glide, you're like, oh, now I can go back to that other island and use the glide to get up to that area and get that resource. This also works for resources too, where your ship can't like progress through this ice, and you need to upgrade your ship with certain resources in order to cross through the ice boundary. And so it's always exciting because you're constantly upgrading your ship in order to progress into new areas, and you're just traversing back and forth across this ocean. And it just is Metroidvania in that aspect, where you are just exploring, and immediately once you unlock a new thing, you know exactly which area you need to go back to in order to discover new places. I would be remiss if I didn't just rave about this music. It is very, very relaxing and soothing. It almost puts me to sleep in a good way. Like, it's a very good game to play right before bed because it really puts you at peace. Although sometimes you do start feeling really, really emotional because, yeah, you have to say goodbye to these spirits that you've kind of formed this bond with, and it's like happy but sad at the same time. Almost like, you know, just someone passing away on their own terms, and they have no regrets, and everything they wanted has been fulfilled, and they just happily pass away. It's a sad but beautiful moment, and these moments happen all of the time. Sometimes it's really hard just saying goodbye to these characters because you just like seeing them around the ship, and you like hugging them, and you enjoy their company. But you eventually, you just have to say goodbye to them, and they become a constellation in the stars that represent like the animal that the spirit took form of. And so Gwen, I'll bring her up again. When you say goodbye to her, and you look up in the night sky, you'll see this deer constellation to constantly remind you of when and your time that you spent together. I know it sounds kind of silly, like it's just a video game. You're forming this bond with basically pixels in a certain sense, but it's kind of similar to if you watch a movie and you really relate to a character, or if you're reading a book about a character that you really enjoy. It's sad saying goodbye to some of these characters, but the way this game presents itself, it is very heartfelt, because these characters actually they tell you when they're ready. It's not like stolen from them or anything. It's a very pretty game as well. This game was developed by a company known as Thunder Lotus, and I've played one of their previous games called Jotun, and it is a very different game than this. It's very actiony and combat based, but the art design almost looks like it was hand drawn, and I don't know how you make art look like this in a video game, but very pretty aesthetics here. I was playing on Nintendo Switch Lite on handheld, so that's like the smallest possible screen you can be playing this game, and at times it can be pretty difficult to see what's going on, especially when the camera zooms out like on your whole entire ship. Sometimes Stella and Daffodil are very tiny, so you have to keep track of them, or it's easy to lose where you are at. Granted, like I said, this is like the smallest screen it could possibly be playing on. I actually had a decent amount of crashes playing this game as well, almost to the point where I was wondering if there was something wrong with my Switch and not necessarily the game, but I want to say it crashed maybe 10 times, which is a lot. This is a long game, so that might be why, but it was very frustrating when my Switch would crash, because this game doesn't autosave as much as I would like it to, and there's no save and continue playing option with this game. You either have to save and quit or wait for an autosave. So sometimes I would have to backtrack quite a lot when the game crashes, and I'm like 5 to 10 minutes away from my last autosave. That can be pretty frustrating. I want to say the game took me maybe almost 30 hours, which is pretty surprising. I did do almost everything that I possibly could. Like, I upgraded my ship all the way. I helped all of the spirits that I possibly could to the Everdoor. There is some completionist things that I could do post-game, like there's this walrus called the Collector, and you have to basically collect every single item in the game, and they will give you certain rewards. This is how you unlock different cosmetics for Stella and Daffodil. You can change the color of these characters and the outfits, which I think is pretty fun. You have to like fish all of the different fish, unlock all of the different recipes for baking. There's a ton of extra stuff you possibly could do for a completionist run, but I mean, it's just a long game. Even just the main game can take you 20 to 30 hours. Sometimes I think it got to the point where this game overstayed its welcome. I felt like it possibly could trim some of the fat and make it just this condensed, nice story. I get that this is the type of game that they want you to play for a long time, though. My whole time playing this game, in my head, I was thinking that this would be a 4 out of 5 game. Like, this is just a great game. It's enjoyable. It has some flaws. But as I had time to sit and stew on it and think about all the characters and all of these moments that are so memorable, I think I will have to give this game a 5 out of 5. It's not for everyone, especially if you like action-packed games, very quick, feel like you're constantly doing something. But if you're the type of person that can just sit and enjoy the moment, the slower moments, that is, then I think this game really has something to say and teach you even, because even each of the characters, they all kind of have a lesson for you to learn. And if you just stop and listen and enjoy the atmosphere and the gameplay, it's just an amazing game. It's just something special, and it deserves the appreciation of being different, you know? It just seems like AAA games really seem to struggle to tap into the emotional side that indie games just seem to grasp so well. If you've ever lost a loved one, I think this game will really resonate with you as well, almost to the point where you might not want to play it because it hits a little too close to home.
Hey everyone, it's me in the editing room, and I hardly ever do this for casual reviews. Normally how my system works is I will record the casual review like right after I roll the credits on a game, and then eventually I will get to editing it when I have the time. So really, I beat this game probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and like I mentioned earlier in the casual review, a lot of it it just sticks with you, and it gets better the more that it stays in your memory and the more you have to stew on it. And I've been really thinking about this passage about art by a character by the name of Gustav, and when you are taking your spirit friends to the Everdor for the last time, they usually have some form of speech or some last words to impart to Stella, our main protagonist. And the final words of Gustav have just rung true with me, and I keep on reading the words over and over again because it's the best push forward towards art that I have ever heard before. So I would like to read the passage to you guys if you don't mind. If you do consider that a spoiler, you're good to go ahead and skip to the end of the video because that's pretty much it from here. But if you don't mind, I'm going to read this quick passage that I felt like it really rang true for me, and it just made a big impact on me as someone who really enjoys art. And I've always known that art was really important to humanity, but I could never put into words why. I could never articulate why I think that it's a endeavor that's worth pushing forwards. So here is the passage. You have to understand that everything is but a meaningless arrangement of atoms. Everything you've ever known, seen, or experienced. Fortuitous circumstances. In the universal chaos, humanity emerged, not a tiny bit more purposeful than the rest, but with an incredible faculty, that of creating meaning, however fleeting it might be. I have no inherent meaning, neither do you, but we can create, organize, put in order, and thus create purpose and meaning. Transcend the primordial chaos. All humankind does so. We create machines that are useful to take control, machines like the dreaded chair. The one that subsumed me made me an object, but maybe also that made me truly realize what impermanence means. For our numerous creations only have meaning as long as they are useful. My chair, when it finally became unneeded, became once again a heap of metal, melted back into the universal chaos, lost its inherent humanity. Usefulness is an easy way to meaningfulness, but not a trustworthy one. It vanishes as quickly as we do. And so it seems the only hope humanity has for transcendence is through art. Meaningfulness pulled from our chaotic minds, not for utility, but for its own sake. And after the artist has been long gone, turned to dust, the art remains. And even after the last one of all humans will have returned to the primordial chaos, provided that we have protected it, art will remain. And so it is that art alone is left in our wake, the only invertible form of transcendence to ever have been in our grasp, proof of our existence, and of our pitiful efforts to rise from the chaos, as would some unknown script from a long-gone power. I know this isn't something that I normally do, but I just felt like that passage, you just don't see a lot of stuff like that in video games.
Well, guys, that's it for me. Let me know what you think about Spiritfarer, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. I'll talk to you later. Bye!